And Commissioner Price, thank you for joining us. So you don't do a lot of interviews, one-on-one interviews these days. What made you stop and decide to do a dialogue with us today?
Well, just wanting to put it all kind of in perspective. I feel as someone who has kind of been the link in history in this city, new citizens, and even some who've been here. They deserve to know exactly what's really going on. To a lot of people, this is new. It's not new. I've seen this movie before. I've been in this city for the last 40-something years. I've been a commissioner for 35 years. We were on the protest line from everything from Christopher Brodsky all the way up to whether it's media, ISDs, police.
Why do you think George Floyd's killing is sparking a different reaction across the state and across the country right now?
I wish I knew. I thought the same thing when I watched ABC, Rodney King. I was around then. I thought the same thing with Michael Brown. I thought Tamir Wright. I don't know. I really wish I knew. And like you said, around the world, when I began to look at the mediums and see Aborigines who look like me suffering at the hands of the police, when I see England and Germany, I don't know. I wish I knew. But I don't want this to be, and like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about where this will lead at the end of the day.
So, Commissioner, you're no stranger to protests. You've seen this before, but now it seems as if the landscape of protests and protest marches and protesters is a little different. It looks a little bit more diverse than we've seen it in the past, especially when it comes to a lot of these social justice issues, namely given some of the individuals we named before, the victims of people who've been killed at the hands of police. Why do you think the movement is attracting more allies, or you're seeing more allies on the streets right now?
Well, again, here we go with history. I'm not impressed that it's that much more diverse. Dr. King, when Swanner and Cheney, Jewish freedom riders, were killed, when there were a number of young Anglos who joined them on the freedom rides, when young people, as part of a strategy, was used in the Birmingham jail. I've seen this movie before. I'm a student of history.
Is it different now?
I don't know. I can't get the feeling that it's really any different.
Outside of now we have video.
That's the key. You gonna believe me or you're lying? I got it. But again, keep in mind, Rodney King, I think it was 1991. Rodney King had video.
Is there anything that you think this generation is doing that your generation could not have done?
Well, I'm always hopeful. I think the Bible says each generation will be weaker, but will be wiser. And I think that this generation has the opportunity, but I want them to be a real student of history and learn from what has happened in the past. Again, I've seen this. I've seen all of this. I've seen when there is a cognitive recognition, there is an emotive response, and so they're responding.
Is there a role that your generation plays in this movement?
I think that if young people want to listen, we've tried to create some bookends. I know when we were picketing, and again, we were on the picket line for over 10 years, daily, cold, rain, heat. The difference is that we thought we learned something from Dr. King and that movement. Even to the point that we had captains. I was over at Channel 8 for a little while, and I think I went to jail 2 or 3 times in one day. at Channel 8. But the protesters did not leave post. Captains were in place. Every time I made my bail, I came back. Dr. King said, if you see a law and you feel it's unlawful and you're willing to break it, then you must accept the consequences. He said to do otherwise is anarchy. And so that's what I'm trying to get the young people to say. I'm gonna tell you something. You know what frightens me? Protesting at night. I never would have fathomed protesting at night. And the judge and I, in a discussion in court, talked about, when he talked about extending the curfew. Night is dangerous for everybody. Yeah. And so I don't even understand it. You got all day. You got all day to be strategic. I've never known that.
Talking about strategy, Commissioner, in a recent op-ed that a lot of people have read, you wrote that, quote, whites are not the only population that needs to develop a better understanding of another group. Blacks need to also better understand whites. What is it that you think blacks need to understand?
Well, first of all, we need to understand, white supremacy and be able to manage it. Unfortunately, in the 9th largest county in the United States, 35 years later, I'm the only African-American county commissioner. But it's not as though I haven't gotten things done. And I'll put my record up against any of my colleagues in this state. And we operate all constitutionally under the same framework. But not until of late, the last few years, have I had a Democratic court. I happen to be a Democrat, but when I had a Republican court, I got things done.
In that same op-ed, Commissioner, you sounded different in that we've heard you in the past. You said you know that there comes a point when confrontation becomes counterproductive. Commissioner, you're known for confrontation, for protesting, and for being pretty blunt. Have you changed? Has your perspective changed?
Well, I don't know if I've changed. Hopefully, I've come to a position in my life, these 70 years, where I'm able to reason, when it's time to hold them, when it's time to fold them, when it's time to walk away, and when I don't want to run, but that's it. I've come. I think I'm a lot more reasonable now, and that's what it is. But no, there's always a time for a confrontation. I think again, King talked about it. I mean, Dr. King was not killed, and he talked about that burning house, in the part of my editorial that did not make it.
And you mentioned that some people might find your words hypocritical, so it's reason,
yeah,
not hypocrisy.
That's exactly right.
We have more questions for Commissioner Price this morning. Coming up, we will resume our rare interview with him, asking whether anything concrete will come from declaring racism a public health emergency, and what does he want his legacy to be? Hear what he told us. Inside Texas Politics, back in a moment. Welcome back. We are spending this morning with a name that is well known in North Texas. Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price. He has not sat down for a TV interview in years, but finally did so with us. Here's the conclusion of our questioning.
So this week we saw you declare racism a public health crisis in Dallas County. It passed unanimously, that resolution in Dallas County. So is that just symbolic, or will anything concrete come out of that, Commissioner?
Well, I think something concrete will come out of it. If it would have just been John Wiley Price authoring 4 pages of words, then they'd have said, there he goes again. But it had footnotes. If you look at that resolution, it had the kind of verification from John Hopkins, from the Center for Disease Control. And when you hear Dr. Casanova, head of the local Dallas County Medical Society, sign up and speak in affirming that kind of resolution, I think it speaks volume.
Part of that charge was to the governor and other state officials to also adopt racism as a public health crisis?
Yeah. Well, probably when elephants fly. But I don't have a lot of confidence that that's going to happen. But all politics is local. Let's start at home.
How much longer could we see you as a county commissioner, or do you have other political aspirations?
None. That's for a different generation. If you want to really talk about the legacy, at the end of the day, I will talk about what I inherited as a county commissioner 35 years ago. And I'll let somebody else be the determinant factor as to where we've gone from here. So whether it's Plaquemines, which you may or may not have heard of, we know that's the real tentacles I want to leave in this community, in the southern sector. The sector that is devoid of housing, that is devoid of internet access, that is devoid of food security, that is devoid of financial security. Is it better? Is it better now, 35 years later? And I don't mind putting my record up.
When you talk about Southern Dallas and the community that you serve, we saw you really fight hard for them during the beginning of this pandemic, or the county's reaction to the beginning of this pandemic, when a lot of barbershops, beauty salons, and pawn shops weren't able to operate because they weren't deemed essential. You really fought hard to make sure that those places could open. Does the decision to determine what's an essential business, should it lay on the counties or on the state, or who should actually have the say?
Well, unfortunately, the 1975 Disaster Act gives the power to the state. Remember, a county is a political subdivision of the state. We get all our power from the state. We can't do anything except what the state says we can do. And so, as a result, charter cities make their own laws. Okay, general rule cities, that's a city that's 5,000 or less, again, they get their power from the state. And so, unfortunately, they get a chance to decide what is an essential business. And I think the travesty of that is that as I look, if there are 176 pawn shops in Dallas, now I didn't know all of this before all of this happened. I know where they are. And, in the Anglo community, I think they call them gold and silver. But in our community, they're pawn shops. But nonetheless, people, we're unbanked. We're redlined. What? And they folks, well, it'll take us so. No, I had people contact me and say, well, we can help you. I said, oh, okay. You take tennis shoes in? You take tools? Oh, yeah. No, we take gold, diamond. No, pawn shops take an array of things. And that may be, that Xbox may feed a family of 4 for 2 or 3 days. And if you've never had to use it, then God bless you. I have. And I've made that admission.
And Commissioner, I want to be respectful of your time, but knowing that we have the numbers in the COVID reaching high above 300, especially seeing the numbers among the Hispanic and Black communities. They're also seeing the bickering between the governor and our county judge. What would you like to see in terms of how we address this moving forward?
Well, I think that, again, COVID is like Katrina, it's like a pandemic, epidemic, it's the same. All it's done is grab the scab and show them the wound. Keep in mind, the reason it has a disproportionately impact on our communities is because, again, I'm gonna go back to those zip codes, chronic illnesses, diabetes, hypertension, and those are the underlying conditions, those are the people who are more susceptible.
And your fear of getting tested too.
Exactly. Access. I fought for Ellis Davis. Ellis Davis was supposed to go to Grand Prairie. I got Ellis Davis. But again, back to what I've done in the last 35 years, we started the community-oriented primary care clinics, Blewett Flower, Dr. R.B. Blewett, Dr. W.J. Flowers on Overton Road. We started those clinics. And now it was about access. And there's still, Dr. Claude Anderson talks about it. Black labor, white wealth, the Great Divide. highways, thoroughfares, still divide communities.
So it definitely has to be addressed. As we wrap up, Commissioner, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I didn't hold back. I didn't hold back. At the end of the day, I spent all that I had. 110%. That's my pledge every morning when I wake up. I will pour out all that I have, and I won't hold that back. I want it to be that Dallas was better because I came through.
Commissioner John Wiley Price, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.